you got to talk about the real shit, the shit you're going through. And the hard-hitting truth behind this is that vulnerability is the freaking bridge between isolation and understanding. Welcome to the VetRise Podcast. I'm your host, Juan Perez. My goal is to make success after service accessible to every veteran in society. I believe in the power of leveraging your service, not as a label that defines you, but as a launching pad for your next chapter. What we have been doing has not been working, and it's on us to start changing the culture. Enjoy the episode, and thank you for your time. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the VetRise Podcast. A year ago, I decided to pick up a mic, hit record, and share my story with the world. If you told me back then that I'd be a guest on some of the most incredible podcasts out there, I would have laughed and said, yeah, right. But here we are, doing exactly that. I just wrapped up a podcast appearance on the Course of Action podcast with Jeff Clark. And he motivated me and inspired me to just record this quick episode because we're doing it. We're doing it. And honestly, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of the support that you guys have given me. So I'm going to ask you for a favor right here, right now. Pause this episode, go find me on socials, and just shoot me a message and just let me know if my podcast has impacted you, if you've enjoyed it, if you want to hear more of a specific topic. I just would love to connect with the actual podcast listeners. And sometimes I feel like I can't because there's no comments. There's no way that I can interact with you guys on the podcast platforms. So if you do follow me on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn now. Do me a favor, just shoot me a message and let me know that you listen to the podcast. Just, I want to know who's listening, right? This has been a surreal ride. And I can't wait to share with you how it's all happened. I want to share with you everything. I want to share my entire story because I love this. What is it that I've learned in this past year? And why is it that every single story that I tell or guest that I have on and the stories that they have to tell, this is why they're worth telling. So I started this podcast in March of last year without a clue of how it would turn out. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a guest on a podcast, and the podcast, unfortunately, was not released until a year later. And that made me think that if I'm spending time giving away my words, why can't I do it myself? Especially if I'm going to be a guest on a podcast that's never released. And I felt like I'm losing value because I don't get to have a place where I can share my story. So that same night, I went online, I figured out how to record a podcast, and I did my first episode. I was nervous. I was very unsure. And honestly, I was wondering, like, who is even going to care about my story or listen to the things that I have to say? But sometimes, like, you just have to jump in before you feel ready. Because when you do, you are going to tap into a level of growth that can't happen when you stay comfortable. I had to accept that my past, my failures, my military experience, my struggles, they might actually help someone else break through their wall. And I had a really big game-changing moment. So what happened? So after a few episodes, I started getting messages from people saying, hey, your story inspires me. Can you come on my show? And this was crazy for me because I had been on a few shows, but it was a complete mindset shift. It showed me that when you share openly, when you are vulnerable, people connect with the real you, not just your freaking videos on TikTok or Instagram. Like, if you're hiding your struggles, if you're hiding your story, you might miss the chance to help others who are still in the fight. I realized that my vulnerability was actually my freaking superpower because it proved that we're all human. Like, we're all trying to find our way on this fucking planet that is just flying around in space. We're all human beings. We all deserve a chance. And there is so much power in connection. So how does it feel? So being invited onto all these other big podcasts, it feels like I'm being handed a backstage pass to someone else's audience. It feels like I get to share with people that normally maybe wouldn't know about me, or they wouldn't listen to me, or they wouldn't have any idea about what I do. So I truly go into every episode appearance with the mindset that I'm going to share as much as I can. And it's not about self-promotion. It's about building real relationships. I've met some amazing hosts, and I've got to meet some of the listeners that follow me after I showed up on their podcast, and they become friends. They become collaborators and even mentors. I just learned something really valuable from Jeff Clark about the way that he does his podcast, and it made me think about redoing the way that I do mine. I'm beyond grateful for all of these connections, for all the followers, for all the conversations, because each conversation does teach me something new. I learned something new about myself, about the power of community, about the power of importance of sharing my journey. You can never underestimate the ripple effect of one candid conversation. You never know who's listening or how it might change their life. So my earliest episodes were rough. The audio was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept showing up. I kept showing up, and I kept doing the thing. And that consistency opened the doors that I never even saw coming. You have to learn to say yes to opportunities. It is not overwhelm. It is an opportunity. And if you handle it the right way, if you move about it the right way, if you mitigate the dangers of it, it's an opportunity. So I remember being asked to be on a couple of podcasts, and I was feeling nervous about doing an interview. I wasn't sure if I was qualified. I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to hear my story. We didn't have a lot of followers on the podcast when we started. Now we're freaking growing insanely. But I did it anyway. So do it anyway. Whatever it is, ask the girl out, apply for the job, end the friendship, leave the house, take the shot. Like, do it anyway. Growth will always happen in the discomfort zone, not in the comfort zone. And you got to learn to be authentic, not polished. You got to learn to be authentic, not polished. There's a time for polish, sure. But honesty and genuine emotion cuts through the bullshit. Share the real you, and people will show up for you. So if you're listening to this, I want you to take this small little lesson away. Be you. Don't ask for permission. Do it even when you don't want to. Stop wondering if you're breaking the rules. Stop even thinking if there's a mold to break. Just be you. There is no type of veteran. There is no type of person that you have to be. People resonate with real experiences, not curated highlights. The stuff that you see on social media, it's not real. It's made that way. When you listen to a podcast, when you get to talk to someone, when you have a real conversation with someone, the tough conversations, that's when you learn the real lessons, the tough lessons, the scrapes and the bruises. But those are what forge unbreakable bonds. Those are the things that truly create connection. Now, why do I share? Why do I harp on vulnerability? I am no stranger to mental health challenges. I've thought about ending it all. I've had a lot of doubts. I've been drinking every single night before. I've been in the dark place. I've had the fear of judgment. But I learned the hard way that talking about it actually sets you free, because I never talked about it. So now I get to possibly, hopefully, I pray, have an impact on others. When I open up, I believe that I give others permission to do the same. Suddenly we're building a community based on trust and shared stories, not just shiny success stories, not just the good stuff, not just the glory. You got to talk about the real shit, the shit you're going through. And the hard-hitting truth behind this is that vulnerability is the freaking bridge between isolation and understanding. If you keep your struggles hidden, you keep your healing hidden. And healing is what so many of us are after, but yet we keep pushing it away. I am doubling down on trying to get more guests. I am doubling down on trying to get on more podcasts. I have on my vision board myself speaking in front of 100 people on a stage, and I have called my shot that this year, 2025, I will be on 3 stages this year. So if you know anyone that needs a speaker, hit me up. Shoot me a message. I would love to do it. And no, I don't charge. I just love to talk. I love telling my story. I love sharing the things that have worked for me. And I'm doubling down on the podcast. I'm doubling down on episodes. I'm doubling down and I'm leaning the fuck in to make sure that I continue to bet on myself because it has always worked for me, because there is no failure if you do not stop moving. You got to keep moving. So if my story resonates with you, or if you have a story that you want to share, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. If you would like to come on the podcast, let's link up. If you know of anyone that has a podcast that maybe would like to have me on, connect us. And if you know of anyone that needs someone to come and talk on the stage in front of people, I'm your guy. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't hold back. Someone out there is waiting to hear exactly what you've got to say. Honestly, guys, I never thought I'd be here. A few months ago, a year ago, this was just an idea that I had late at night. Now, thanks to this journey, I've seen firsthand the power of vulnerability, discipline, devotion, and simply saying yes to opportunities. I'm humbled. I'm fired up, as you guys know, and I want you to know that if I can do this, so can you. So thank you for joining me on this ride. Whether you're tuning in, and I'm not going to edit that out. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you've been with me since day one, every share, every listen, every review, every subscription, every message reminds me of why I started. So until next time, stay fucking consistent, stay grateful, and remember, devotion will create discipline. Lead yourself. First, own your path and never, never underestimate the impact of your story. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the VetRise Podcast. If today's episode inspired you, made you think, or simply gave you hope, I have a small favor to ask. Share it with just one veteran or someone you think could benefit from my message. Your share could light a spark for them. You don't know who you might save. For more insights and to join our mission, follow my socials at JP, the Veteran Coach, and explore how we can rise together. Thank you for joining us, for being part of this journey, and for believing in the power of rising together. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep rising, and never forget that we are stronger together. My name is Juan Perez, and thank you for your time.